Now, brown fat is still very important.
Yeah, brown fat and lamb's still important. We're really interested in lamb survival still. We think that that's one of the areas where we'll get increase in productivity. And so if you've got lambs that have got adequate brown fat and can mobilise that brown fat to generate heat, then you're going to improve lamb survival. So it's still very much a hot topic of research to us.
Can we just recap on exactly what brown fat is and what it does?
So we've changed our opinion of what brown fat is. We used to think that brown fat was like the deposits that are only found in young animals. We now know that brown fat's found in a number of places and not just in the very young. And it seems to be there as a chief controller of thermoregulation, or it controls our heat generation systems, and it persists through early life. So young animals have that ability to sort of increase their thermogenesis, increase their heat production, and that's one of their ways of surviving cold challenges. Provided they've got feed available, they can use that energy to create heat. The process by which they do that's quite an interesting piece of metabolism, because it's called uncoupling, and basically it's like a futile cycle. They take energy and they just burn it to produce heat, and that's sort of like they have a little internal furnace. Not quite so important in ruminants as in other animals, but because the ruminants have their rumen, which generates a huge amount of heat too. But for a young animal where its rumen hasn't fully developed, a lamb after birth, then having that ability to generate heat is critically important for survival.
And we really do need to develop it as part of our production drive here in New Zealand.
Yeah, it's something where we know the genes involved in the processes, we know there's variation in those genes. It's something I think we need to put a big emphasis in sheep breeding on trying to get lambs that are much more robust at birth. We see large numbers of deaths at times. People associate it with cold weather, and we say, oh well, that's it's the weather to blame, but it's actually as much to do with the livestock. And there's a number of factors. A key one's birth weight. We know that if you have higher birth weights, then you're less likely to have lamb deaths. But then it's getting lambs that can actually use the fat they've got, use the energy, metabolise it and produce heat and get up and we talk about teat-seeking behaviour. They can latch on quickly and get their first feed, and so it's sort of all part of a complex system to improving lamb survival.
Can we breed for it?
Yeah, we can breed for it. We know for starters there's obviously breeds of sheep that produce bigger lambs, and that's got to be balanced against fertility and fecundity, getting the right number of lambs on the ground. So as your triplet numbers go up, or you get more quads, and then lamb size comes down, so they become more vulnerable again. So there's a sort of a balancing act between getting lots of lambs and getting lambs that are the right size to survive. But then even within individual animals, there are genes that control thermogenesis, and we can actually selectively breed for animals that are more robust, are less likely to not be able to generate heat, and thus less likely to die if there's a thermal challenge.
And I guess as sheep farming goes further and further back into the hills, that this becomes more important.
Yeah, I think so. That's a bit of hooks and catches too, though, because in the high countries, you get into the hills, there's more scrub and there's more cover, there's more valleys and so on that they can get into. So you can get shelter that you wouldn't have out on open plains. And what you're talking about there is wind run, so there's often more shelter from the wind in the hills if they can get down into the valleys and the gullies and into the scrub, versus being out on an open plain where we've taken all the windbreaks out or not looked after them, those sorts of things. So yeah, it sort of swings and roundabouts on that one.
You've done a lot of research with the Romney breeders. They're onto it.
Yeah. So the Romneys are really robust. We know that if we take one of the gene tests we use, they're right at the top end with that. And my point to them always is you don't actually have to breed for it, because you guys are on the front foot. But in the Romney trial work we're doing, we're getting average lamb birth weights that are close to 6 kilograms per lamb. We've had twin lambs coming out over 6 kilograms each, so the ewes carrying 12 kilograms of lamb, and we try and get the triplets up over 4 kilograms. So and we're not seeing huge amounts. People talk about dystocia or birthing difficulties, but we're not seeing that. And part of the thing there is that's about breeding a good ewe. You've got to breed a ewe that can actually carry more lambs and can get them out. So she's got a big enough birth canal that they come out okay too. So there's a design thing, if you like, with the ewe, to get a ewe that actually births well, and ewes that are too small in the back end that have lambs that are too big in the shoulders, and it just doesn't work.
And of course, it's been a pretty tough old year as far as nutrition for the ewes is concerned.
Yeah, it has been tough year, and I mean, I haven't heard too many scanning percentages coming in yet, but you know, there's a bit of a hint there that it's going to be hard, especially in North Canterbury and those East Coast regions where we've had those big drought hits, that the ewes will be the ones that smart farmers will have dealt to that and made sure that those ewes were good going forward and that the lambs and the hoggets are wearing the cost of a feed shortage. But yeah, I suspect we'll see a little bit of a decline, especially through North Canterbury and ewe performance this year.
Brown fat isn't just a focus for you as far as sheep are concerned, there's also a situation with dairy cows.
Yeah, so different thing. We know as dairy cows get stressed, I mean, it's seen globally, as dairy cows are producing milk, if there's a heat stress, then their productivity drops away. And it's a similar system again. What's happening there is that those cows lose the ability to actually dissipate heat. So it's sort of the opposite end of the spectrum, and similar processes involved, and we're trying to find out if we can find cows that have the ability to dissipate heat and actually ramp up their production as well. So it's the same sort of metabolic systems that we're looking at, but the different outcome. We want cows that are putting all their energy into their milk. They're not at risk of a thermal challenge from being cold, but they're at risk from being too hot. Not something you typically see in New Zealand. You need high levels of humidity, so what you're seeing in temperate climate dairy production is unlikely to be a heat stress effect, but as you go into tropical dairy production, you start to see these heat stress effects coming in.
So really it's more than just shelter belts and shade trees.
I think it's more than that. Yeah. It's to do with how they actually utilise their energy, how they partition the energy to milk production versus heat generation, and how they alter their heat generation in response to the challenge of lactation. I think is, and it's a cow by cow thing. So it's a thing that's genetic, and so we've got to unpick what's happening there yet. But I think we'll be starting to breed cows one day who are less susceptible to heat stress and can be productive even when they do go under some sort of stress.